I stared at the invitation in my hands, the words written in a formal, elegant script that only made my anger rise higher. Mason Thornton, new heir to Thornton Enterprises. I had been the one groomed for this. I had been my father's chosen one, the one he whispered about in late-night meetings, the one who was supposed to carry on the family legacy. Yet here it was. It's an invitation, a cold reminder of the betrayal that had already begun to seep into my life. Mason, my cousin, had been selected over me, the so-called fake heir. He had no real ambition, no vision, and certainly no respect for the family name. But there he was, placed above me in the company that had been my birthright. I threw the invitation on the table, letting the elegant paper flutter to the floor. My hands trembled, my mind racing. Was this how it ended? My family, my own blood, was turning their backs on me without a second thought. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to sit at a table and pretend everything was okay. But I had to know. I had to see it for myself. I had to confront them. Dinner was as stiff as I expected. The walls of the grand dining room echoed with silence, each click of silverware grating on my nerves. Mason sat at the head of the table like it was his right, a smug smile on his face as if he had already claimed the throne. "Jack, I'm glad you could make it," my father said, his voice as cold as the marble floor beneath us. He barely looked up from his plate, his words sounding like an afterthought. I swallowed my frustration, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Of course, Father, I wouldn't miss the celebration of your new heir." Mason's eyes flicked up, meeting mine with a gleam of arrogance. "It's funny how things work out, isn't it?" he said, his voice dripping with insincerity. "Guess I'm just the right choice after all." I felt my fists clench under the table, my nails digging into my palms as I fought the urge to snap. But I couldn't. Not here. Not in front of them. Alina, my younger sister, shifted uncomfortably in her chair beside me. She looked torn, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Her eyes met mine briefly, a silent plea for understanding. I wanted to believe she wasn't part of this, but deep down, I knew better. Everyone had a hand in this betrayal. Everyone had chosen Mason over me. I couldn't deny it any longer. I wasn't the son they wanted anymore. The dinner dragged on, each bite tasting like ash in my mouth. I could barely focus on the conversation around me, my thoughts consumed by the hollow feeling that had settled in my chest. Finally, my father looked up, meeting my gaze with an expression of finality. "Jack," he said, his voice low and heavy with meaning, "it's time you understood. Mason is the future of this company. You've had your chance." The words stung. They tore through me with a sharpness that left me breathless. My father, the man who had once told me I was the future of this family, was now casting me aside like I was nothing. My worst fear laid out in front of me in stark reality. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What happened?" "How did he enough, Jack?" My father cut me off, his tone colder than ever. "This is the way it's going to be. Deal with it." I felt a surge of heat rise within me, but I kept it buried. There was no point in arguing. The decision had been made, and I had no place here anymore. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, a harsh contrast to the quiet that had fallen over the room. I turned to Mason, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Enjoy it while it lasts," I said, meeting his gaze one last time, "because this is as close as you'll ever get to being the heir." He smiled, that damn smile that made my blood boil. "Oh, I will," he replied, never once looking away. I didn't wait for anything more. I walked out, my heart heavy with betrayal and anger. The door slammed behind me, but the sound didn't even seem to matter anymore. Everything I had worked for, everything I had trusted, was gone. I knew one thing for sure, though. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not without a fight. I couldn't stop replaying the dinner in my head. My father's words echoed in my mind, each one worse than the last. The finality in his voice, the coldness left me numb. But what hurt the most was how easily he dismissed me. How easily they all let Mason slide into my place. I tried to shake the thoughts out of my head, but it wasn't working. My feet led me to Sarah's apartment, the place I had always gone to seek comfort. She had been my rock for years, the one person I thought I could always trust. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering in my chest. I needed answers. I needed to know why she'd been so quiet, why she hadn't said anything about Mason. She knew what was going on. She had to. The door opened, and Sarah stood there, her eyes wide with surprise. Wait, but there was something else in her eyes, something that made my stomach twist. "Jack," she said softly, stepping back to let me in. "I wasn't expecting you." "Yeah, well," I muttered, walking past her. "I need to talk to you." I turned to face her, my frustration boiling over. "I don't understand, Sarah. You knew what was going on with the family. You knew they were replacing me with Mason, but you've been acting like everything's fine. Didn't even want to look at her anymore. You've been acting like nothing's changed." Her expression faltered, and she looked down at the floor. The silence stretched between us like a thick wall. Finally, she spoke, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. "I've been seeing Mason, Jack," she confessed quietly, almost like she was ashamed. "For years now." The air in the room shifted, and I froze, the blood draining from my face. "What?" I whispered, the shock leaving me breathless. "You've been ... with him?" She nodded, her eyes never quite meeting mine. "It started a long time ago. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to tell you." I felt the ground beneath me tilt, the world spinning. "Why, Sarah? Why didn't you tell me?" She cut me off, her voice shaking. "I didn't know how to hurt you. I didn't want to lose you. But I also didn't want to lose Mason. I've been stuck in the middle, Jack." The words felt like they were suffocating me. Betrayal was worse than I could have imagined. I thought she was on my side. I thought she was the one person who would never turn on me. But she had been seeing Mason lying to me all along. "I never thought you'd betray me like this," I said, my voice breaking. I turned away, trying to fight the tears that threatened to spill. "I thought I could trust you. I thought we were something real." She reached out to touch my arm, but I jerked away, not wanting her comfort. Not anymore. "Jack, please. I never meant for it to happen this way. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. I never wanted to hurt you. Please understand." But I couldn't understand. I couldn't process how everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. I could barely stand to be in the same room with her. My heart felt like it was being torn in two, the pain unbearable. "You lied to me," I whispered, my voice trembling with anger. "You lied to me, Sarah, and I can't deal with that." I took a step back, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "You and Mason, you both used me, used my trust." I shook my head in disbelief. "I don't know who you are anymore." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not when she had caused this much damage, not when I felt like I was losing everything. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said again, her voice desperate. "Jack, please, I'm sorry, but it didn't matter. The damage was done." I could see it now, the truth that had been hidden from me for so long. I had been living in a lie, and the people I cared about had turned on me without a second thought. I turned away, heading for the door. "I can't be here right now," I muttered, my heart heavy. "I need to figure this out. I need to think." I walked out without another word, the door slamming behind me. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap in the face, but it didn't do anything to numb the pain inside. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was keep walking, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. They had taken everything from me, the family, the woman I loved, and now I would take it all back. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not without making them regret it. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant reminder of my failure, of the family I thought I could trust, was choking me. I'd left Sarah behind, her apologies falling on deaf ears. But it wasn't just her. It was everything: Mason, my father, the whole damn family. I had nothing left here. No one. I stormed out of my apartment, not even bothering to lock the door. The pain in my chest was suffocating, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I was done being the pawn, done being the fool who let everyone else control my fate. I found myself at the edge of the Thornton estate, staring at the mansion that had once felt like home, and now felt like a prison. Every inch of this place had been tainted by betrayal. I couldn't stay here. Not anymore. I needed space. I needed time to figure out who I was without all the noise. I slammed the door of my car shut, the sound echoing into the silence. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I had to leave. Hours later, I found myself sitting in front of Victor Hayes' office, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. He'd been a mentor, someone who always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Maybe that's what I needed, someone to guide me, to remind me that I wasn't as lost as I felt. I walked in without knocking. He was sitting behind his desk, as usual, a glass of whiskey in his hand, looking like he'd been expecting me. "Jack," he said, his voice low but steady. "I knew you'd show up eventually." I sank into the chair across from him, rubbing my eyes. "I don't know what to do, Victor. I don't even know who I am anymore. My family, Sarah, they've all turned on me." Victor's eyes studied me for a long moment, like he was trying to see through all the pain and frustration. Finally, he spoke. "You've been playing their game for too long, Jack. That's why you're feeling like this. You let them decide your worth." He leaned forward, his voice taking on a serious edge. "You need to stop letting them control you. Stop letting them make you feel small. You're bigger than all of them." I stared at him, the weight of his words hitting me hard. "But I'm nothing without them. The business, the family, it was supposed to be mine." Victor shook his head slowly. "No, Jack. The business doesn't define you. Your family doesn't define you. You define yourself. You've been so focused on revenge, but what you really need to do is rebuild yourself. Use that anger. Turn it into something powerful." I sat there, the weight of his advice sinking in. "I don't know if I can. I'm not like you. Not as strong as you think." "Strength isn't about what you can do for other people, Jack. It's about what you can do for yourself. You're still holding on to their approval, their validation. Let it go. You've already lost them. You're free now. Use that freedom to find your own way." I swallowed hard. The idea of starting over terrified me. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the only choice I had left. If I stayed in this cycle, I would never escape. I would always be the one they controlled, the one they tossed aside when they were done. "Okay," I said, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "I'll do it. I'll rebuild." Victor gave me a sharp nod. "Good, but remember, Jack, don't do this for them. Don't do this because you want to prove something to your family or Mason. Do it because you deserve it." I exhaled, the first breath that felt like I could actually breathe. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't drowning. I wasn't being swallowed by the anger and the pain. I had a plan, a purpose. I stood up to leave, but Victor stopped me with one last piece of advice. "Remember, Jack, you're never truly beaten until you let them take your will. Don't let them win that way. You fight for yourself now, not for anyone else." I didn't look back as I walked out of his office. I didn't need to. For the first time, I knew exactly where I was going. And it wasn't back to the Thornton estate. It wasn't back to Mason's world or my family's expectations. It was forward. I was going to make sure they regretted what they'd done to me. But I wasn't going to do it out of anger. I was going to do it for me. The broken pieces of my life were still scattered everywhere, but now I had a plan to put them back together. I wasn't going to wait anymore. It wasn't easy. Starting over never is, but with Victor's guidance, I began to see a way forward. I had no choice but to rebuild. The wreckage of my old life still clung to me like a heavy weight, but with every step, it started to feel lighter. The first few weeks were a blur at nights, early mornings, and endless phone calls. But it didn't matter. I was too focused on one thing: building something new, something of my own. One evening, as I sat in my small office, watching the city lights flicker outside, Victor's voice echoed in my mind. "Do this for yourself, Jack. Not for them. Not for revenge. Do it for you." I wasn't sure I believed it at first. Could I really build something just for me? Could I push aside the anger and use it to fuel my success instead of my need for revenge? "You're doing it, Jack," Victor had said after I made my first successful deal. "Now keep your head straight. We're playing a long game." I remembered those words as I took a deep breath, glancing at the financials. My new business was starting to take shape. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. A message from Mason popped up, completely unexpected. "Hope you're enjoying your time off, Jack. You'll never get back what was meant to be mine." The message stung, but it also lit a fire inside me. I shook my head, barely able to hold back the laughter. "Mine," he said. I'd heard that too many times in my life, and now it was clear. Mason was just a pawn, and he still didn't see what was coming for him. I leaned back in my chair, scrolling through the message again. I wasn't going to let him get to me. Victor was right. Revenge is better served cold and calculated. If Mason wanted to play that game, then fine. But I was going to win. I spent the next few days gathering information, strategic, quiet moves that wouldn't attract attention. I knew Mason was arrogant, too arrogant to see the storm building around him. But I wasn't going to be impulsive. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes that had led me here. The more I dug into Mason's dealings, the clearer it became. He was skimming money off the top, playing dirty in ways that I had never thought possible. It was all about power for him, and he didn't care who he hurt, but I did care. I was going to use what I'd learned, but not yet, not until the time was right. Victor's words played in my head as I sat in my office, mapping out my next steps. Patience, Jack. Let them dig their own graves. He was right. I had to let Mason continue down the path he was on. He was digging his own hole, and I was just going to watch him fall in. The next time I saw Victor, he was sitting across from me, a knowing look on his face. You're starting to understand it, aren't you? I nodded slowly. I think I am. I've been so focused on the wrong things, Victor. I've been angry, and I've let that anger cloud my judgment. Victor smiled, his expression full of quiet approval. Good, that's progress. You're learning how to control it, how to use it. You're starting to see the bigger picture. I leaned back, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't just about taking revenge. It was about building something that would outlast them all. I didn't need Mason's approval. I didn't need my family's validation. I just needed my own. You've got a plan, Victor said, breaking my thoughts. I can see it in your eyes. I nodded again. I did have a plan. A solid one. And Mason had no idea what was coming. I was playing the long game, and he was too short-sighted to see it. It felt good to be in control again. Over the next few weeks, I kept building. My business grew faster than I'd expected, and the respect I'd been missing started to flow in. People took me seriously now, not because of my name, but because of my work. I wasn't the Thornton heir anymore. I wasn't anyone's second choice. I was Jack Thornton, and that was enough. Mason, on the other hand, kept pushing forward with his usual arrogance. He couldn't see that his empire was built on lies and greed. Every time I got an update about him, it just solidified my belief that he was destined to crash and burn, and I wasn't going to rush it. I was going to watch him fall, and I would be the one standing when the dust settled. Victor and I continued our meetings, slowly shaping the path I was walking. You're becoming someone else, Jack, he told me one night, a glass of whiskey in his hand. And that someone's going to be unstoppable. I smiled, feeling the truth of his words sink in. The anger was still there, but it was different now. I wasn't letting it control me anymore. I had bigger things to focus on. And when the time came to strike, it would be a move that Mason would never see coming. I didn't need to rush. I had everything in place, and I was just waiting for the right moment to turn the tables. Revenge wasn't about being impulsive. It was about being strategic. No. More than ever, I understood that. I couldn't believe my luck. Everything I'd been working for, everything I'd been planning for, had come to this moment. The key to exposing Mason was right in front of me, hidden in a dusty file in Franklin Winter's office. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Power. Real power. I sat in my car, staring at the family lawyer's office, my heart racing. I knew what I was about to do, and I knew it couldn't be undone. I wasn't just going to expose Mason. I was going to destroy everything he'd built on lies. The Thornton legacy was mine, and I was taking it back piece by piece. When I walked into Franklin's office, the familiar smell of leather and old paper hit me like a wave. He was sitting behind his desk, his glasses perched on the edge of his nose as he worked through a stack of documents. When he looked up and saw me standing there, his face went white. He wasn't expecting me, but I wasn't here to waste time. Jack, he said, his voice unsteady. I wasn't expecting a visit. You weren't expecting me. But here I am, I replied, my voice colder than I intended. We need to talk. Franklin shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. What is this about, Jack? Something wrong? I didn't waste time on pleasantries. I know about the deal you made with him. The one that put him in charge. He froze, his hand hovering over a pile of papers. I don't know what you mean. I walked over to his desk, throwing a file down in front of him. "You're a liar, Franklin. I've got the evidence that proves Mason's rise to power is built on a lie. You and he," I pointed at the file, "you've both been hiding this for years. You think I don't know what you've been doing behind my back?" Franklin's eyes darted nervously. He looked at the file and then back at me, his voice trembling. "Jack, you don't understand?" "No, you don't understand," I interrupted, my tone sharp. "I'm done being kept in the dark. I'm done letting you and Mason control everything. This empire was mine, and now I'm going to take it back." Franklin swallowed hard, his face pale. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered, looking down at the file again. "We did what we thought was best for the business. Mason he was always the better choice." I laughed bitterly. "Better choice? You really think Mason has what it takes? He's nothing but a puppet. And you? You've been pulling the strings this whole time. You're just as guilty as he is." I leaned in closer, letting the weight of my words sink in. "This is your last chance, Franklin. You tell me everything. You give me what I need to expose him, or I'll make sure you regret it." He leaned back in his chair, his hands shaking as he pushed the file towards me. I made a mistake, Jack. I should have never gotten involved with Mason, but it's too late now. You don't understand the mess we've made." I stared at him for a long moment, watching him squirm. I could see it in his eyes. He knew what was coming. He knew the truth was about to come to light, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "You were right about one thing," I said, my voice low. "This was a mistake, but not mine." I took the file from his desk and stood up, meeting his gaze with cold determination. "I'm going to expose Mason, and I'm going to take back what's rightfully mine. You'll be the one who's left holding the bag." Franklin didn't say anything as I turned to leave. I could feel his eyes on my back as I walked out of the office, but I didn't care anymore. The game had changed. Mason's days were numbered, and he had no idea what was coming for him. I didn't waste any time. By the end of the day, I had the information I needed. Proof that Mason's claim to the Thornton Empire was nothing more than a fabricated story. He wasn't the true heir. He never had been. It was all a lie, carefully constructed by Franklin and Mason to push me out of the family business. Now, I had the leverage I needed. It was time to expose Mason for who he really was. He had spent years pretending to be something he wasn't, and it was about time the truth came crashing down on him. I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction as I sat down in my office, the weight of the file in front of me. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I was going to make sure Mason and Franklin paid for their betrayal. I smiled, my thoughts racing with the possibilities. It was all falling into place. I wasn't just going to take the empire back. I was going to take everything from them, my family, my legacy, and my future. And when the dust settled, I would be the one standing, the real heir. The one who had fought for what was rightfully his. I could feel the weight of the Thornton estate as I walked up the steps. The old mansion loomed in front of me, the place I once called home now, feeling like a stranger's house. Everything about it felt cold, and the memories of better days seemed distant, buried beneath the layers of betrayal. I'd been away for weeks, rebuilding my life, finding my strength, but now it was time to return. Time to face the family that had turned their backs on me. And most importantly, time to confront Mason. He had no idea what was coming. As I rang the doorbell, my heart didn't race, steadied, like it was already prepared for what was about to happen. The door opened, and I was met with Elena's face, her expression soft but guarded. "Jack," she said, a note of surprise in her voice. "You're right." My gaze unwavering. "I need to see Mason. Now." She stepped aside, not questioning me further, and I walked into the familiar hallway. The smell of polished wood and old leather hit me instantly, stirring a mix of nostalgia and anger. But I kept my focus. I wasn't here for anything other than the truth. And Mason was going to face it. I found him in the study, his back to the door, talking on the phone, probably with some client or business partner. When he saw me in the reflection of the glass, his voice faltered, and he quickly ended the call. "Jack," he said, a smirk forming on his face as he turned around. "I didn't expect to see you here. What brings you back? Ready to congratulate me on my new position?" I stepped forward, my eyes locking onto his, with a quiet intensity. "I'm not here to congratulate you, Mason. I'm here to expose you." His face tightened, but he quickly masked it with that smug look he always wore. Expose me? What are you talking about? You're the one who lost. You're the one who walked away. So why don't you just leave me to enjoy my success? I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was a laugh of frustration, of everything I had been holding back finally bubbling to the surface. You think you've won? I said, taking a step closer. You think you've taken everything from me? You don't even know the half of it. You never earned anything. Not a damn thing. Mason's eyes narrowed, but he didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He knew I wasn't bluffing. I pulled the file from my bag, the same one I'd taken from Franklin's office, the one that had the proof, the damning evidence. You see, Mason, I said calmly, opening the file in front of him. This says otherwise. It says you've been lying to everyone about everything. He took a step back, his face losing its color as he glanced at the documents. His fingers trembled as he reached for them, but he quickly pulled his hand back, like he was trying to pretend he hadn't seen them. What is this? He demanded, his voice suddenly shaky. You think this changes anything? Yes, it does, I replied, my voice quiet but full of conviction. You've been stealing from the family. It's from me. You've been manipulating the whole damn company to make it look like you're the heir. But you're not. You never were. Mason's panic was starting to show. His facade was cracking, the calm, collected image he had so carefully built beginning to crumble. I don't know what you think you have here, Jack, he stammered. But it doesn't matter. You've lost. This is my family's business now. Shook my head slowly, never once breaking eye contact. You don't get it, do you? You've never understood. So it's never about the business, or the money, or the legacy. This was about respect, something you'll never have. I could see the sweat beating on his forehead now, his breath shallow. For the first time since I walked in, he looked like the one who was cornered. You think this is over? Mason snapped, his voice rising. You think you can just walk in here and take it all back? You're nothing but a disappointment? You always were. The words stung, but I didn't flinch. Keep talking, Mason. Keep trying to act like you've won. Because when the truth comes out, when everyone sees you for who you really are, you'll be the one left with nothing. I stood still, letting the silence stretch between us, letting him feel the weight of the truth slowly sinking in. You can't do this, he said, but there was a crack in his voice now. I'm the one in charge here. I have everything you don't. You have nothing, I replied quietly, my voice calm and unshaken. Not anymore. Mason looked at me, his arrogance shattered, his eyes wide with panic. He wasn't the king he thought he was. He was just a man with a stolen throne, and I was the one who was going to take it back. I turned on my heel, my decision final. I've got what I need, Mason. It's over. I didn't wait for his response. No. I knew there was nothing more to say. The damage had been done, and now it was time for him to face the consequences. I walked out of the room, my mind already racing with the next steps. This was just the beginning, and Mason didn't even know it yet. I watched from the outside, detached. It was the only way I could deal with it. My family, broken and scrambling, trying to fix the pieces of what they'd destroyed. I had no intention of playing their game anymore. My phone buzzed on the table in front of me. I picked it up, already knowing who it was. My father. We need to talk. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. What was there to talk about? What more could they say? My father had made his choice. They all had. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The damage was done, and no words could fix it now. A few days later, I found myself sitting at a quiet cafe, the early morning sunlight pouring through the windows. I wasn't here to talk to anyone. I wasn't here to listen to apologies. But somehow, my sister found me. Alina slid into the seat across from me, her eyes red, like she hadn't slept in days. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Jack, ... I know you're angry. I know you feel like I turned on you. But you need to understand, I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to be a part of it. I stared at her, my mind racing. She didn't get it. None of them did. Alina, you chose a side, I said, my voice steady, but there was a heaviness behind it. You chose Mason. You didn't stand by me when I needed you most. You didn't choose family. She looked down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, her voice trembling. I've just been so ... confused. Everything's falling apart, and I didn't know what to do. I shook my head, cutting her off. You can't take it back now. None of you can. I let out a deep breath, staring out the window. The problem isn't just Mason. It's all of you. You've all allowed this to happen, and I'm done pretending it's okay. She reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away, feeling the cold distance between us. I'm sorry, Jack, she said. I really am. But I can't change what happened. I couldn't look at her anymore. The apology, the regret, all felt hollow.
Oh, yeah, yes.
It didn't change the fact that everything I had once known was gone. The family I thought I could count on had crumbled. I wasn't sure it was worth salvaging. The next few weeks dragged by slowly. Mason's downfall had started. Whispers circulated about shady deals, and the empire he'd built began to crumble under the weight of the lies he'd told. I didn't feel satisfied by it. I didn't feel vindicated. I simply watched as he spiraled further into regret, but it was too late. He had made his bed, and now he was lying in it. I could hear the desperation in his voice the last time he tried to reach out to me. Jack, I know I messed up. I never meant for it to go this far. Please, I'm sorry. I was just trying to prove I was worthy of the position. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. His words felt empty, like everything he said was an excuse. Regret didn't fix things. It didn't undo the damage. I could hear the fear in his voice, the panic as he saw everything slipping away. But I wasn't going to be his savior. I wasn't going to step in and make it better for him. He had made his choices, and now he had to face the consequences. Days turned into weeks, and I kept my distance from the family. My parents called, but their voices were strained, full of guilt. They wanted me back. They wanted me to forgive them, to forgive Mason, but I wasn't sure I could. Not anymore. I wasn't sure I wanted to. One night, as I was sitting in my apartment, a knock came at the door. It was my father. He looked older than I remembered, his face lined with regret and frustration. I didn't let him in right away. Instead, I stood in the doorway, waiting. Jack, he started, his voice rough. I know I've failed you. I should have stood by you. I made a mistake, and now we're all paying for it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream at him, tell him how much he had ruined everything, but instead I just stood there staring at him. I wasn't going to beg for his approval anymore. I wasn't going to let him convince me that everything would be okay. Can't fix this, I said finally, my voice quiet. It's too late for that. He looked down at his shoes, guilt written all over his face. I know, he muttered. I just ... I want you to know, Jack, that I'm sorry for everything. I nodded, the words sticking in my throat. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need anyone's apologies. The pain of betrayal was something I would carry with me forever, but it had made me stronger. I had learned that forgiveness wasn't always possible. Sometimes the pain was something you had to live with. It wasn't something that could be erased by apologies or regrets. It was just a part of who I was now. I didn't answer him. I didn't need to. I closed the door softly, leaving him standing there, and walked away. For the first time, I was ready to leave the past behind me. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. I sat at my desk, staring at the papers in front of me. The final signatures had been added. The Thornton Empire, my empire, was now officially mine. The legal battles, the negotiations, all the years of waiting had finally paid off. The weight of the contract in my hands felt different now. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a shift, a pivot to something more important. Mason would never understand. He'd always believed the power belonged to him because he had the name, the title. He was wrong. Power wasn't given. It was taken, and it was earned. I had taken it back. The door to my office opened, and Alina stepped in. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly walked toward me, her eyes focused on the papers spread across the desk. I didn't need to look up to know she was there. Jack, she said, her voice quiet. It's over, isn't it? I leaned back in my chair, finally meeting her gaze. Yeah, I replied, my tone calm but firm. It's over. She stood there for a moment, her eyes searching mine. I don't know what to say. I never thought it would come to this. You've always been the one who deserved it. I shrugged. It's not about deserving it anymore. It's about taking control of what's rightfully mine. The rest doesn't matter. She nodded slowly, as if trying to understand the distance between us that had grown over the past few months. But Mason... he's lost everything now. I nodded again. He was never the heir. Not really. He built his life on lies, and now he has nothing left to stand on. He brought this on himself. Alina looked away, a pained expression crossing her face. I know, I wish things hadn't ended like this. I wish we could have been a family again. I let out a soft breath. I can't go back to that, Alina. I've changed. I've had to. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't always come. Sometimes you just have to let go. She was silent for a long moment, then finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever regret it? What happened? Not the way it all went down. I thought about it for a second, feeling the weight of her words. Regret? Maybe a little, but not for the reason she thought. No, I said, my voice steady. I regret how everything happened, but I don't regret taking control. I'm doing this for me, not for anyone else. I can't keep waiting for people to see what I've always been capable of. Alina glanced down at the papers again, the silence hanging between us. You're really doing it, Jack. You're really taking back the family business. I leaned forward, my hands resting on the desk as I looked at the contracts in front of me. Yeah, I am. And this time, I'm doing it my way. Later that day, Mason called. I almost didn't pick up. But I knew he'd be expecting me to answer, and part of me was curious to hear what kind of excuse he had left. Jack, his voice crackled through the phone, strained and frantic. You don't know what you're doing. You think you've won, but you've ruined everything. The business, the family, it was never supposed to be like this. I exhaled slowly, sitting back in my chair, the calmness in my voice almost a relief. It was never your business to ruin Mason. You had your chance. You chose to lie, and now you have to live with the consequences. There was a pause on the other end, a sharp intake of breath. You think I'm going to just walk away? You think I'll let you destroy everything I've worked for? Everything you've worked for? I repeated, my voice cold. You didn't work for anything, Mason. You stole it. And now it's over. I could hear his breathing quicken, the panic rising in his voice. You don't understand, Jack. You can't just take this from me. This is my legacy. Not anymore, I said firmly. Your legacy ended the moment you chose to deceive everyone, and now you're left with nothing. You'll have to find your own way, just like the rest of us. There was silence for a long moment, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Then, finally, I heard a soft, defeated sigh. Shh. You won, Jack. I never thought you'd do it, but you did. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. I wasn't interested in his apologies or his regrets. The game was over and Mason had lost. I'm done, Mason, I said quietly, before ending the call. I sat in the silence of my office for a moment longer, feeling the reality of the situation settle around me. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I had taken back what was mine, but more than that, I had regained control over my future. I wasn't just the heir anymore. I wasn't just a pawn in a game that I never chose to play. I was the one in charge now, and that feeling control, power, was something I wasn't going to give up. It's not for anyone. I stood up, looking out over the city as the sun began to set. This was just the beginning. Whatever came next, I was ready for it. I stood in front of the Thornton estate, my eyes fixed on the mansion. The place that had once been home now felt like a distant memory, a ghost of what it used to be. I had walked away from it once, but this time it was different. I wasn't walking away in defeat. This time I was leaving it all behind, knowing that I had control of my future. I had taken back what was rightfully mine, and nothing could change that now. The door opened, and there he was. Mason. His face was pale, his usual arrogance replaced by a nervous tension that was almost palpable. He knew what was coming, and so did I. Jack, he said, his voice trembling. I didn't expect you to come back. I thought it was over. I took a step forward, my heart steady, my mind clear. You're right, Mason. It is over. But not for the reasons you think. He swallowed hard, his eyes flicking between mine and the ground. I know I've done terrible things. I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Jack. His apology hung in the air, but I didn't react. I had heard it all before, the empty words, the promises of change, the regret that came too late. I had learned that regret didn't undo the damage. I looked at him, his pleading expression only confirming the emptiness of his words. It's too late for apologies, Mason, I said, my voice calm but firm. You had your chance. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences. He stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. Please, Jack, I was just trying to prove myself. I wanted to be a part of something, I thought. I thought if I could just take over, if I could just be the heir, things would be better. I didn't know it would destroy everything. I felt a flicker of pity, but I quickly pushed it aside. You didn't care about the family, Mason. You never did. You only cared about yourself, about power. And now look at where you are. His face crumpled, the last remnants of his pride slipping away as he took another step closer. I didn't mean for it to end like this, Jack. I never meant for it to come to this point. I shook my head, a quiet sadness settling in my chest. It doesn't matter what you meant. The damage is done. I'm not going to let you drag me down with you. Mason's eyes filled with tears, his voice barely a whisper. I've lost everything. My future, my family. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm so sorry. The apology rang hollow. I had heard it 100 times before, but this time it meant nothing. The hurt he had caused was too deep, the betrayal too vast. I couldn't forgive him. Not now. It's not ever. I stepped back, my gaze never leaving his. You don't get to fix this, Mason. You don't get to make it right by asking for my forgiveness. You've lost everything because you chose the wrong path. He dropped to his knees, his voice shaking. Please, Jack, don't leave me like this. I looked at him for a long moment, the weight of his regret sinking in. But as much as it pained me, I knew I couldn't take him back. I couldn't go back to the way things were. No, Mason, I said softly. This is where it ends. You have to face what you've done. I'm done carrying your mistakes. I turned and walked away, every step heavier than the last. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew that I had made the right decision. As I walked out of the Thornton estate for the last time, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first stepped into that mansion. I had taken control of my life, my future. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Mason, take that from me again. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their love. I had found my own path, and it was the only one that mattered now. The past was behind me. The future was mine to claim. At this time, I was going to make sure I never let anyone take it away from me again. I sat by the window, watching the city below. The sun had just set, casting a warm glow over the skyline. The world outside seemed so far away, so distant from the storm that had once raged in my life. But as I sat there, reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized that I had changed. I wasn't the same person I was when I first walked away from everything. I had reclaimed my life. I had taken back what was mine, and now the weight of the past no longer pressed on my shoulders. I had no more grudges, no more anger. It had taken everything from my family, my trust, my hope, but in the end, I was the one who stood stronger. The phone buzzed beside me, and I glanced at the screen. It was Alina. I didn't answer. The messages, the calls, they had stopped mattering a long time ago. My family's voices were distant now, their words no longer holding the power to make me feel small. I had learned that silence could be more powerful than any apology. Silence was mine now, and it was the reward for everything I had gone through. I didn't need their validation anymore. Didn't need to beg for their love or forgiveness. I had learned how to stand on my own, without needing anyone else to define me. I leaned back in my chair, letting the peace of the moment wash over me. It was the first time in years that I truly felt at ease. The chaos of the past, the lies, the betrayal was all behind me now. What had once felt like an unending weight was now just a memory, and I had built something stronger in its place. The door to my office opened, and Victor stepped in. He gave me a knowing look, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I see you're still here, Jack. It's good to see. I smiled, feeling the quiet satisfaction of everything I had accomplished. Yeah, I'm still here. You've come a long way, he said, leaning against the doorframe. I knew you would. I looked up at him, meeting his gaze. I didn't think I could do it, Victor. There were times when I thought I wouldn't make it through, but you were right. You told me I could turn it all around, and I did. He nodded, his smile small but genuine. I knew you would. I had it in you all along. It was never about the business or the family. It was always about you finding your way back to yourself. I let out a breath, looking out the window again. I lost myself in all of it. In the anger, the revenge, the need to prove them wrong. But now, now I know who I am, and that's enough. You've earned it, he said, his voice filled with pride. You fought for this, and now you're free. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable, a reflection of everything I had learned. I had fought for my freedom, and I had one. I had let go of the past, and in doing so, I had found peace. Later that evening, I stood outside my office building, looking out at the city. The world felt different, now brighter, clearer, as if the fog that had clouded my mind for so long had finally lifted. I could see the possibilities ahead of me, stretching out before me like an open road. I wasn't afraid anymore. Wasn't holding on to any grudges, any anger. I had let it all go. The pain, the betrayal, the anger, it had all been a part of my journey, but it wasn't my destination. Now, I was ready to move forward, to build something new, something that was truly mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I had control of my own destiny now. Family, the business, everything that had once seemed so important. It didn't define me anymore. It defined myself. As I walked away from the building, I didn't look back. The past was behind me, and I was ready for whatever the future had in store, because this time I was walking into it on my own terms. The reward of silence was knowing that I was stronger, wiser, and finally free. And that was all I needed.